This is Evangelist George McTire of the Word of God Ministry, and I would like to thank you for joining in on this series of this entitled It's Time for the Facts, God's Facts. And what this series is about is that we're going to take a look at the Bible and what the Bible has to say about situations that are taking place in this nation today. And it's going to include things about crime, about the coronavirus, about churches, about preachers, and everything else. What's the cause of our problems and so forth, and what needs to be done, and what people are calling themselves that are supposedly experts are telling us that we need to do, all versus to what God says that we must do. And as usual, being an evangelist and a minister, I'm taking my viewpoint strictly from the Word of God, the Bible. Now, before I actually get into the series, I would like to say this. Things that you're going to hear, you're probably going to be diametrically opposed to if you do not know what God has to say about the issues. That's fine. I used to be the same way. The thing is, as we go through things and as people come up with all sorts of ideas and man begins to follow the ideas that these other experts and so forth put forth, and you begin to see that they're failing, then as a last resort, you might get down to the last resort where you say, well, I think I better go to God. Well, see, I'm trying to prevent you or trying to help you to avoid having to go through all of that to get to the point where then you will turn to God by giving you a, watchtower, the things, a lighthouse, so to speak, where ships are out on the sea and they're trying to get into port and things, and they need the lighthouse to show them the way to keep to avoid from hitting things in the water, in the ocean and seas and so forth that might cause them to crash. I'm trying to give you some information to avoid that. And these series are going to be in basically 5-minute segments so that you don't get too bored with listening to things that you might think just don't make any sense and you don't really want to do it, but you just say, well, I got a couple of minutes, I'll sit here and take a look at it and see what he has to say. That's the intent of this. Now, as I said, I'm going to get into these things and I'm going to do them in line with the Word of God. And hopefully you have a Bible with you, because it's going to be necessary so that you can check on what I'm saying and see if I'm reading the Bible right and so forth. Hopefully you have a King James version of the Bible. I prefer the older King James, which is written in the King James English, but you might have trouble understanding some of the scriptures by reading the King James English, where then you might want to use another version. But I start with the King James Version because it is the most accurate in interpreting all of the original texts that were translated from the Hebrew and Greek into English. So we're getting ready to get started. Thank you and stay tuned.